Hello, this is DJ Chuang, and I am trying to figure out how this video was made, as I have occasionally and now more regularly been watching the videos from Paul Vander Klay as he comments on the zeitgeist of the meaning of crisis that our generation is experiencing, some more articulately than others, actually very few that are intellectually articulate about what is going on underneath the surface of our social media, polarizing, ideologically infested world today. And Pastor Paul Vander Klay, I got to meet him in person in Sacramento a couple weeks ago. And he's been commenting for several years now about Jordan Peterson, who is a quote unquote public intellectual of the intellectual dark web. And I've been fascinated with some of their discussions. And Paul and I connected virtually back in the days when Pastor Tim Keller of Redeemer Presbyterian Church in New York City was just beginning to become popularized through his books being published. And I had created one of the first, actually historically the first web page with Tim Keller information. And look at him now, right? Pretty awesome to see how his words and his ministry and also his tweets have flourished and helped other people to articulate their faith. Although most recently, it's also stirred up some dust. So that's been fascinating. But what I am trying to figure out is how Pastor Paul, is able to create these video overlays where he can play a video and comment on them in between his viewing.
And I blog at leadingchurch.com. You can find my sermons at the Living Stones website too. And I wanted to do a series of videos on Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson has been fascinating me over the last few months as I've been watching his Psychological Significance of the Bible series. I've made it through his Maps of Meaning 2017 course and his Personalities course, and I've caught a bunch of his other videos. While Peterson gets a lot of attention for the political stuff.
Yes, and I too have been fascinated by Jordan Peterson's explanation and perspective on the psychology of the Bible. His explanation of the first chapters of Genesis are riveting, and Pastor Paul will also comment on that here.
I'm most interested in the Bible stuff. As you can see behind me, I do a lot of work in the Bible. My father was a minister, my grandfather was a minister, and then if you go back through my Jewish ancestry, there are a lot of rabbis and butchers, it seemed, way back in the day. So I've lived within the context of the Bible. I think the Bible is a fandom. It's a story that invites us to live within it. And so I was very interested in Jordan Peterson's videos, and I want to discuss them. And I've blogged for quite a while, and so when I was thinking about discussing them, I thought, well, I could write blog posts on them and embed YouTubes of them. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that this entire phenomenon of Jordan Peterson is a YouTube phenomenon. In the 80s.
And that's a keen observation. It is a YouTube phenomenon in the sense of how video conveys more than just the words on a blog post. It conveys body language and tone of voice. And if you have an intriguing character with a provocative message, those videos on YouTube that engage the emotions are those that engage the audience. And so Jordan Peterson has done that with his rambling style of conversation, as well as profound insights that resonate and hits something on our nerves, some in a good way, some in a very aggravated way, like fingernails across a chalkboard.
I read Neil Postman's Amusing Ourselves to Death, and I'm rereading it now along with his other book on technology. And Postman, I think, makes the point very persuasively that mediums change message. The medium is the message. And so what does it mean that...
And actually that comes from Marshall McLuhan, who's been often quoted by many people since the 60s about how the medium is the message. Leading communications thinker there.
Jordan Peterson is using YouTube, and how and why is this important? I suspect that we might be seeing a revival of sorts. Probably has very little to do with the kind of revival that has tent meetings and sawdust and the kinds of things on the American frontier that tent meetings are supposed to go back to. But often when we have a new technology or a new medium, we find God working through those new mediums. And I think Jordan Peterson is making some important contributions. He's trying to heal some things in Western civilization and in the Western church that have been outstanding for 200 or 300 years.
And there's a lot more to his commentary, but I want to stop here because I am just testing to see how to create a video with an overlay where I could play the video and do commentary the way Paul does commentaries on others' conversation. And it's a very conversational format without the typical conversation format, which is the Zoom meeting with two people on at the same time having a conversation that way. But this is a colored commentary on top of an existing video. And I think that adds another level of engagement. And I would love to see more pastors. There's the concept of the public intellectual, academic people speaking about how we ought to live and giving a color commentary on everyday life. And some would critique that an academic person with a specific discipline should not be commenting on the way that we should live across the board. And there's some truth to that critique, but all of us have some commentary, regardless of our academic discipline or personality or perspective about how all of us should live, whether you have a political persuasion or a faith persuasion or whatever. And so I think it can be helpful if we do so, have a conversation in public in a civil manner, not in that shouting manner that's overtaken and popularized over the internet, but we need some people that can speak with sense and persuasion. And I think this is a format that is conducive to doing that. So as I mentioned, there's the public intellectual. There's also the public theologian, but they tend to only speak to Christians. So they're speaking from the theological academic to the theological non-academic. And what is, I think, is the missing piece is the public pastor who will speak not only to the members of their congregation or the potential consumers of their Christian devotional teachings, and I won't name any names that are just popularized Christianity with their television or radio or internet ministries, but those who will speak to the public that is public, those outside of the church wall, those outside of Christianity. And until we get to that point, which the internet and social media provides us total access to do that, until Christians are speaking, whether they're pastors or not, speaking to the public, directly to the public about the questions and issues and the concerns of the public, I think we will still be stuck where we have been in the church. And as a result, we are already seeing that slow and steady leak that's actually speeding up of people leaving the church because we are answering questions that no one is asking as a church. So I'll leave it here. I have many more thoughts that I would love to share in public, but I want to make sure I'm not just talking to myself. So add a comment, let me know what you think about Pastor Paul Vander Klay and how we need to have public pastors.